Hi everyone, I hope that you're well and enjoyed your Easter break. Welcome back to term 2. I thought that we would start back this term with a Mother's Day artwork. This is a sample that I did earlier. If you don't want to do this for Mother's Day, that's absolutely fine. You could make the artwork for someone else who you might not have seen it because we've all been in isolation, or you could just do it in your art diary as a fabulous artwork. Now this artwork today has quite a few things that we need. So what I want everybody to realize is when we're doing these videos that I need everybody to pause the video as much as they need to, because when I'm recording, I actually pause the video quite often when I'm doing something that takes a long time, so that the video is not just watching me do something that takes a long period of time. So please, if you don't feel like you've got to try and keep up with me, pause this video as many times as you need to. Now there's quite a long list of things that we need for today's activity, so I need everybody to listen carefully, pause the video and go and get all of these items. So firstly, you'll need your watercolor palette that was put in your pack that hopefully you all picked up. You'll need a paintbrush. I'm using quite a thick paintbrush today, but if the only one you have is the thin one that was included in your watercolor pack, then that's absolutely fine. You'll need a glue stick, you'll need a pencil, you'll need some aluminium foil lightly scrunched up, you'll need a white pencil, a pair of scissors, I told you there was a lot, and last but not least, you need your art diary, and you also need a piece of paper out of your art diaries, one for the background and one for the moon. So how about we all pause the video now and go and get all of those items, because it was quite a list. All right, so the first thing we need to do is, I'll put this at the back for now, the first thing we need to do is just paint one whole piece of paper entirely black, and we need to use a lot of water and a lot of colour to make it nice and dark. No white gaps if you can. And I'm about to pause the recording of this video because this actually takes quite a while to do. So don't rush it. I always find as well that once I finish my first layer, once it starts drying, it goes a little bit grey. So in the past, when I've done this, it's a really good idea to go over it a second time as well. It doesn't have to be perfectly neat, but it does have to be dark with no white gaps. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video now, and I think you should do the same so that you can take your time doing this. All right, so you can see here, I finished the background. It really did take me quite a while to do, so don't feel like you need to finish it quickly, but I'm definitely going to go through and give it a quick second layer. As you can see that where it's drying, it's already starting to turn a little bit grey, and I want it nice and black. So if you're using that tiny brush that was in your watercolor set, you're probably finding that it's even taking you longer. So you might want to ask someone if there is a thicker brush lying around. Now in a moment when we stop, we need to get this to dry. And it shouldn't take too long. But if there is any sun at home while you're doing this, try and put it in a nice sunny spot. Otherwise, you'll just have to wait for it to dry naturally, but it really doesn't take that long. You can even give it a little bit of a flap around later. I'm just going to put this to the back now because I've finished. And we're going to start working on our moon now. So you can either use the small bowl, which is what I've got, or you can see if you've got a large cup as well. And you just need to place it anywhere on the page. It doesn't matter because it's going to be cut out anyway. Hope you can see my circle there. So we're going to be using a watercolor technique where we actually paint the inside of our circle with water only. Now, because my water's a little bit dirty from doing that black background, you can probably see that I'm filling my circle with water, and I'm trying really hard to not let the water go outside of my circle so that I can keep that nice sharp moon shape. Because if the water goes out of the moon, then it's likely that the water will also drizzle out of the moon. So that's actually giving me quite a nice colour as a background there. Now, what I would like everybody to do is pause the video for a moment. You're already on the computer. Go into Google, and I want you just to have a look at some of the images that you can find in Google Images when you put in the moon, because it looks very different in those satellite images than it does from when we're looking down, when we're looking up from Earth. So if everyone can just pause, go and have a little bit of a look at the moon and the colours, and then come back. Okay, so now that you've seen some of the images of the moon, we're going to start adding colour. If you took a while researching the moon, having a look at images, you might just want to come back and add a little bit of water to your circle, especially if it dried, because we need this to be quite wet. Okay, so we're going to start with our white colour, and we're going to be adding just a little bit of black to begin with, not a lot. And lots of white, more water. We're just going to be going through randomly and adding some of that light colour throughout. Then we're going to be getting a little bit more black than we did last time. You can see that the grey is getting darker, a little bit more water, getting quite dark there. Whoop. I went quite dark there, so I probably only need to go one shade darker. So use the least amount of that really dark colour. Clean your brush completely. We're going to be adding a lot of white now, but you can see that my white has pretty much turned black. So you can actually just get your brush and you can clean your white almost back to its original state. Get a nice wet brush. One thing that I forgot to tell you to get was a paper towel. But nice wet brush, lots and lots of white. And then we're just going to come through and blend as much of those colours as we can with water. And just make sure we go over the whole thing now. Okay, I feel as though compared to my last ones that this one's quite dark, and you might have made the same mistake as well because the black can just be so dominant. So just wait for it to dry a little bit. Get some more white on your brush, and you can just go through and add more white. You may not need to do this. It really doesn't take long to fix, so if you're not happy with it, spend some time fixing it up so you get the colour that you want. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So then we get our aluminium foil and we just dab the whole thing with our aluminium foil. And you should be doing this while your page is still quite wet. When that dries, it'll give it a really nice texture appearance. Okay, so I'm pretty much finished with my moon there. I'm happy with it. And our next step is obviously to cut the moon out as neat as possible. If your page is too wet, pause the video, give the moon some time to dry, put it in the sun, or just sort of wave it around a little bit, try and get it dry before you cut it out, because I would hate to see anybody start to cut this out and rip through their entire page. So try really hard to make sure that it's dry when you cut out. But I'm going to start cutting mine out anyway because I don't have the time to wait. Okay, so I've got my moon all ready to go. I've got my black background, which is pretty much dry and was not in the sun at all, so it really doesn't take that long. Now we need our glue stick. We'll cover the back of our moon with glue, and you need to put your moon a little bit lower than center because we need to put our image on the top and also put some lettering up there. So this is probably a good place to put it. If your moon's still wet, you might find that just like this, you get a few creases in your moon. Don't worry about that. I actually think that it adds to the appearance and makes the moon look more realistic. So if you find that you get a few little creases and things in there, I really wouldn't worry about it. Now, I did cut this out earlier, but when you're cutting out your image, you really have to cut out very neatly along all of the lines of every arm, leg, every detail over the hat, around the fingers. Try and cut out as neatly as possible. And if you have any gaps in between, you can see here that there was a colour in between the ankles there. Go to the effort of cutting that out, because when you get to the point of sticking it onto your image, you don't want a different colour to be there. You really want it to look realistic, as if you're sitting on the moon. So once you have cut out your character, play around with it a little bit and decide where it looks best. I quite like it on a little bit of an angle so that she looks like she's looking up into the sky. Decide where you want it. You can see that that shoe is cut off there, so it is so much better if you've got the full feet. But I don't. Use your glue stick again. Lots of glue on the back because we don't want that to ever fall off. And stick your image in place. Okay, so when we come to the writing part, you might want to write to someone, dear mum. I think that you should definitely write something about the moon. I'm going to write, I love you to the moon and back, but you might want to write, I love you to the moon and back and more, or something else. You need to write quite heavy, and make sure your paper is also dry for this part, so you might want to do this part a little bit later on. I'm just going to write I, and I wanted the writing to look a little bit messy. And I'll write to the moon and back, exclamation mark. Now you can see that it doesn't really stand out enough, so I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go over all the lettering much darker and make it a bit thicker so that it stands out a little bit more. So let's make sure that we pause it and spend some time doing that properly. Okay, so you can see I've made my lettering a little bit darker, but I'm doing I love you because that's a statement in itself, and then dot, 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 dot to the moon and back. And then you've finished. So I hope that yours turned out well. If not, it really isn't a hard artwork, so feel free to start again. But I hope that yours turned out well, and I hope that you can give this to someone or that you haven't seen, or yeah, but it's fine if you just want to keep it in your diary and have it as an artwork. So I hope you enjoyed your art lesson for this week, and I will see you next week. Bye everyone.